So we're going to talk do-it-yourself when it comes to making tops for your aquarium. And we just started the do-it-yourself Affordable Reefing Facebook page. And because if you're like me, you like to build your own stuff, save some money, and it's part of the hobby and it really makes it your own. In this case, I bought acrylic. I got this stuff on Amazon. I got a whole pack of these 1/4-inch acrylic sticks. They're 24 inches long. And I cut them up, got my trusty Dremel tool out. I got an old one from back in the day, and measured out the top of my tank. I got this one here that I just put the netting on, and it's curing. And this one I got all ready to put netting on, and cut it out to fit my tank, cut it up with the Dremel tool, and then glued it together, of course, our super glue that you probably have for all your frags anyway. Now, I did this because I made one of these some time ago, and I made it out of aluminum, the same stuff that you use for your windows in your house. And of course, over time, the aluminum broke down, started seeping into my tank, into the water, and my ICP test came back high in aluminum. So it was time to change things over. It works great for a freshwater tank, or if you have a fish-only tank, that doesn't really matter about aluminum. But if you have corals and some SPS, you have to be careful for all those unwanted metals and poisons in the water. So anyway, I redid it. So very easy to do. Measure it out. You can glue all your corners and joints in with super glue. I put a little bit of wax paper or parchment paper underneath each joint so it doesn't stick to the wood. As soon as it dries, anything that drips off comes off really easy when you pick that paper off. And then when we get done, come around to this side. And of course, I bought this screening also on Amazon, and just hold it down, pull it tight, and I also use super glue to glue it in, and as I move it along, I use a stick to hold it down tight, and put just a razor knife and a scissor, a pair of snippers, pliers next to it to glue it down so it's somewhat snug. Now, once the glue dries and I glued it all different places around here, I'm gonna go through a monofilament fishing line, really thin stuff, maybe 6-pound test, and loop it around through here and just pull it snug, because I don't like a lot of bubbles and little marks that are inside of the screen. I want it to fit tight, but you don't want to bow it in, so you don't want it too tight. You just want it to look nice and neat so it looks good on the fish tank. So when I get done, I'll go ahead and take some more pictures and do a video of it on top of the tank and show you how we tie in, of course, the screen onto the acrylic rod with a little 6-pound test monofilament fishing line. So, I'll be back shortly. All right, now we got our netting glued onto the acrylic, went around the whole edge. Easy to do, you just want to line up the squares and keep a nice straight line as you're going down the acrylic, and keeping everything in line with each individual square will help you do that pretty easy. So it keeps it all pretty uniform as you're going across, same thing across the lengthways. As you're coming down, you'll have angles where stuff like your overflow need to be cut in. And of course, just using plain old super glue does the trick. Now we're gonna get our scissor and we're gonna cut along, right along about 1 square out. And we're gonna leave a little bit because after this, we're gonna get some fishing line, monofilament, probably 5-pound test, and tie these off about every couple of inches, just to keep it extra strong and to also pull this snug in the center so we don't have any little puckers and little creases in it. It's actually pretty tight right now, but when we tie our fishing line in, it's going to tighten it up just enough, and we don't want to over tighten it again so that we don't end up pulling it in and warping it, because when you over tighten it, you can pull the edges and the centers in and warp it, and it won't quite look right on the fish tank. So everything's cut out, even our light brackets for the lights on the back. This is where our overflow goes in. And of course, this is the front of the tank here. So we're gonna get going. We're gonna start cutting this out, and then we'll do a little fish knot tying, and we should be all set. All right, we got our frame done. Everything's glued. The mesh is glued on. Went through and made a little thread with my fishing line. Little piece of plastic so it feeds through the squares easy. And as you can see, wrapped every about 2 inches around the acrylic and the mesh and pulled it kind of snug so it took all the puckering out all the way around. And then I went through with a little super glue and kind of Put a little dab there, tiny dab there, just a little bit to hold the fishing line in place and to glue it down so it stays nice and tight. And we're gonna let it dry and put it on top of the tank. Easy peasy, do it yourself.